And welcome back to Zanpakuto Creation Series. This one comes to us from Zombie Demon and Daniel F. And they ask the time, age-old question. Question that has vexed men, women, and child for many a generations. What is Doom Guy / Doomslayer Zanpakuto? Now, Doom Guy, and I'm just going to refer to him as Doom Guy from here on out in the video because he has had other titles. Doom Guy is a very unique case here. And the reason I say it is because I use Doom Guy many times in verses, but I get people who get on my case like, you don't know Doom Guy, Doom Guy, you do this and this and this. I'm like, okay, that's great. Well, sorry, I didn't play a lot of Doom. But things that people have pointed out about him, though, stand out to me in a sense that it makes a Zanpakuto for him very interesting. He's defeated the forces of hell on multiple occasions. He's actually kind of like the embodiment of not hell, but almost like vengeance against hell. 1 second here. I'm just getting some information here to help my case here. So I mean, he's been not driven by lazy, but he is like the embodiment of rage and, vengeance against the forces of evil. And obviously too, he wields a lot of weapons in the game. So giving him a Zanpakuto, it kind of feels like overkill, just a little bit. But still, he is, he's apparently transcended human physiology and has actually, absorbed Argent energy. He can absorb and metabolize Argent energy via his suit. He's kind of just become the living, walking embodiment of vengeance, if you will, against hell. Now that said, what does a Zanpakuto for him look like? Because there are things in here that I think can really define his Zanpakuto a bit. First off, I think he's actually a weird mix of a Kido and a melee type. Predominantly he's for melee combat with this very specific Kido ability. Unlike most, I actually do think this guy, because of just how he is, would have a Kodachi, not a katana. He'd have an extremely long sword that would give him extra length for just slaughtering individuals. Its release would be Raze, as in to raise hell, or raise, not raise hell, but not raise as in lifting something, but raise as into basically, like, if you raise the earth, you pretty much just wipe it clean, more or less. Its Shikai name is Hell Glutton. Its Bankai name is Hell Purifier, which translate out to Jigoku Kushinobu for Shikai, and Jigoku no Sejuki for its Bankai. The spirit of this Bankai, though, that is one of the things that I think is very key here, is that the spirit of this Bankai would take the form of a rabbit. Because one of the things that was a defining trait of him was he wanted to get his rabbit back. He wanted vengeance for what happened to his pet rabbit. I think having a rabbit spirit for Zanpakuto that has such a heavy metal name and an ability that leans towards that would be hilarious, and I think it would fit him perfectly. The Shikai's form, though, basically takes the form of the Blades of Chaos, or one of the Blades of Chaos. Just think of a very much bigger version of this. Something akin to Zabuza's decapitating butcher knife, basically. I can't remember the full name of it, but his decapitating blade. His sword. Think of a blade of Olympus without the chain, or you could add the chain too, but that design in a much bigger form, and that's what he wields. In terms of what the Zanpakuto actually does, though, I think because of just the nature of who he is at this point, I think what it does, it absorbs demonic, negative, Argent energy, and just puts it into the blade to strengthen the overall blade. This might not seem like an actual Kido ability, but the Kido ability, the fact that it's actually absorbing all this energy in and of itself would be a Kido-esque ability. Now, while it's not, while it can't utilize the Kido or the energy within its Shikai, that would be what the Bankai's for. I could see it basically then turning into the Blades of Olympus with the chains kind of connecting to each other. Kind of like Sogyo no Akotawari. The blades shrinking down maybe half the size. Still much bigger than what we get with the actual Blades of Chaos. But still much larger than that, but shrinking down. And then having the energy basically form around this character, form around Doomguy. Not necessarily like encase the energy, but I mean actually physically the energy physically transforms around him and encases, and basically is molded to his will. He's now constantly absorbing and using the demonic or negative or evil energy around him to various degrees, of creating blades, creating energy blasts, creating shields, creating like the head of a dragon that consumes an enemy. Think of what you will. Use your imagination on that at that point. Now, the obvious weakness of this Zanpakuto would actually be that if it's not going up against someone that has energy of this form, it's only really used as a melee weapon at that point, which would fit Doomguy very well, who's gone just straight ham with very little before. So without the use of an opponent who has, so if we're talking about in the Bleach world, if he's going up against Hollows, yeah, Hollows definitely. Quincy's, like other Shinigami, it's because it's really just spiritual. I mean, it's all spiritual pressure, but the style would differ between, races. So, like, if you were to go up against Aizen or Tozen, I think against Visors, this blade would also work. Hollows, definitely, and Orankars. Shinigami, not inherently. And Quincy's would probably be a hit and miss category, depending on the type of Quincy. Against let's call them pure individuals, say like beings of actual light, like Gerard Valkyrie and Lily Barrow, sure. Against more, not corrupt, but against more vicious, malicious, I guess you could call them, let's say evil, more, what's the best terminology word I can use here? Against more cruel, sadistic, that's another word. Against someone whose ideology, whose personality isn't quite there, it would be a lot more, isn't quite pure, it's a lot more, what would be considered evil, then this will probably have a greater effect. So it's a morality probably plays a big factor in your opponent versus what they're capable of doing. But that said, this is ultimately just my opinion. What do you think Doomguy's Zanpakuto would be? I think this probably works out pretty well as a Zanpakuto for him. But again, I'd be willing to hear a different opinion. Absolutely. Until then, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Like, comment, share, subscribe. And I'll see you folks for the next one. Later.